MG, it's just you and me today, mate.
I know, how sad.
We're going to miss Scotty for
And
this
you know
one.
what else, man? It's almost like that cold weather that Scott's been dealing with all the time he's been over in the UK is just starting to come down here. And then he's going to come back in peak winter here, but he'll be far more used to it than we are.
Yeah, I did the little thumbnail with the rice flour in remembrance of Scotty.
Yeah,
so
I've been here. I wore my puffer jacket in my PTs this morning for the first time, I reckon, this year. So
yeah, it's getting cold now.
Definitely. Man.
But you and I haven't really had a really good chat and a podcast, just you and me. So it'll be good just to bounce some things. I think we will keep all the nerdy stuff to Scotty when he gets back.
Yeah.
But I think a couple of things. We've had some news about IFBB bringing natural shows to, well, not only to America, but also worldwide and to Australia next year, which is super exciting. We'll talk about that. And then I went to the ICN Rookie Show on the weekend, so we can talk about that. And I know that we have the expo coming up this weekend, so then we can talk about that and then go through some of the questions. But what I thought would be really, really good is if I actually play the recording of the announcement.
Oh, yeah, that's a great idea. A lot of people wouldn't have heard it unless you follow the IFBB on Instagram and heard the announcement. You may not have seen it or heard it. So yeah, let's play it. That's a great idea.
I'm gonna play it right off my phone and hopefully people can hear it.
Tyler Mannion here, NPC and IFBB Pro League Vice President. And today I'm here with some breaking news about our NPC natural competitions. This goes for our NPC USA athletes and our NPC worldwide athletes. For our NPC USA athletes, we're going to have over 30 NPC natural contests here in the USA this year. These will all be qualifiers to our Natural Pro Qualifier, which is the Ben Weider Championships in Virginia in November. We are planning on growing these opportunities even more going into 2025 and beyond. So here in the US, our goal is to about double that number of 30 for NPC natural contests. We will also be adding another Natural Pro Qualifier in 2025. Earlier in the year, and the Ben Weider will be later in the year in November. For our NPC worldwide athletes, we're continuing to look at different countries and adding more natural competitions throughout the world. Now, what is really exciting will be we are adding more opportunities for these athletes that are winning their pro cars at these contests. In 2025, we want to add 10 to 15 IFBB Pro natural contests per division. Why this is important is because we're planning to add these in the US, in Canada, in Europe, and in Asia to make these qualifiers so the winner of these natural pro shows will qualify for the IFBB Pro Ben Weider Championships that are always held in November. Our IFBB Pro natural contest will qualify you and flow right into the IFBB Pro Ben Weider Championships in November. What is also going to make this so exciting is for most of our divisions, the winners of the IFBB Pro Ben Weider contest qualify you for the Olympia. So you will still have an avenue to compete in these contests and one day make it to the Olympia stage. For information about our NPC USA natural competitions.
Cool news, right?
Big time, man. Big news.
Yeah, it's really big news.
I think it's probably something that they've been talking about for quite some time. I think there was a period there where, there were some really sad and unfortunate, deaths within the sport. And I think, around that time, they probably sat collectively and said, what are we going to do to potentially have a future where, athletes aren't feeling like they need to take high amounts of pharmacology to be able to compete or to be recognized to be successful. So big news, man.
Yeah, there's a couple of things. I want to kind of break it down a little bit in my head just so I can get my head around it all and maybe help you guys out to understand it. But I'm just going to call this out. I think IFBB's listened to this potty because I don't know if you remember, like last year we spoke about a mid-year season. What does IFBB do this year? Create a mid-year season. I spoke to Scotty on the Retreat podcast and I said, IFBB do natural shows in the US. That's what you should try to do. And now they're bringing the natty shows to Australia. I'm just calling it out. So if anyone wants anything that the IFBB want to do, just let me know. I'll mention on the potty and we'll try to get them to do it. But
sounds good.
there's a couple of things going on there. So if no one knows, currently there are IFBB or NPC natural shows that are in the US and also around the world, but there's not that many. So obviously they see there's a big market for natural bodybuilding, and it's a market that they're not grasping fully. So they've decided to expand, which is great because it's great for our industry. It's great for the sport. It's great for natural bodybuilding as a whole, because it's going to get a lot more exposure, which is absolutely awesome. And what he said about the Ben Weider Pro show, which is later in the year, and if you win, obviously you need to be a pro to do that show. If you win your division, your overall, then you actually qualify to do the Olympia. So it's actually Olympia qualifying show, which is absolutely amazing. So if you're like a bikini athlete or something, it's really, really difficult to get an Olympia qualification. So that's another way to do it, especially if you are a natty athlete too, which is awesome. But the fact that you can now get an IFBB Pro card as a natty competitor is pretty enticing, which is awesome. Now, I'm not too sure how that's going to look in Australia, and if they're going to be giving out pro cards in Australia. I just don't know. But I think people need to get their head around the fact that this is going to be across all divisions, and it's going to be the natural version of all divisions. So, you're going to have bodybuilders that are natural that will be getting an IFBB Pro card. You're going to have classic physique guys that are natural that are going to be getting a pro card, and so on and so forth. So they're going to look very, very different to the enhanced athletes, if you think about it. So I'm not too sure how well those kind of divisions will go once they get their pro card to go in a pro lineup post that point. But I'm thinking more so like a bikini competitor. We even know now that there's natural bikini competitors that are obviously doing IFBB and have their pro card, and they are natural competitors. So at least we'll be able to see that there will be bikini competitors that now know they can compete against other naturals, and let's call it more of a level playing field, if you want to call it that, and they could potentially get their pro card via that avenue. Now, again, I'm not too sure how it's all going to happen next year. I guess we just have to find out a little bit more. I'll do a little bit of digging. If they're going to run it a full separate show, or if IFBB are going to run it concurrently in the current shows and have natural divisions within the current shows, I'm just not too sure. So it'll be really, really interesting. But MG, I know you before were kind of reading out the rules of what they consider what is a natural, and it's a little bit different to what we would call how our natty feds currently consider someone as being a natural. So maybe you want to have a read through the rules and read out some bits.
So I think the most important thing is, for anyone who's heard this for the first time, there'd be a big group of people, who would say that this is still not a real natty show. All right. There's going to be people on both sides of the fence who say, hey, once you're off and you've been off for a certain amount of time, you do become natural because the potential gains you can make being off versus on are very, very different. Sure, that's true. But for most of us, I think we're going to say that there still may be a potential to have an advantage as long as you are off these substances for a period of time. And I'll read it out to you, and then you can make your own decisions. But basically, the rules that go into effect from June the 1st this year is the following substances are prohibited for the listed time frame. So I'll read them out before you enter a natural NPC IFBB contest. Anabolic agents, you must be off for a minimum of 3 years. Hormone and metabolic modulators, 3 years. Insulin, 3 years. Peptides, hormones, growth hormone, SARMs, 3 years. Thyroid agents, 3 years. Diuretics, 6 months. Beta-2, 6 months.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you can have been on these substances for more than a decade, and as long as you're off, 3 years before going into this contest, then technically you're a natty. I suppose it's tough, man, because is there an advantage to being on these type of exogenous compounds for 10 years? Do you think you'll retain some of the tissue you built over the 10 years? I would say 100%. Equally, the testing process is going to be interesting because depending on how you test, if it is just urine samples, things like, let's just call it testosterone, are going to be out of your system, for the most part, somewhere between 6 and 18 months, I think. So having a 3-year period is risky too, because it's a lot longer than what the standard sort of testing parameters are. I think there's positives and negatives to it. We could go into it for forever, but I think for the sport, I think the fact that, you know, a federation as big as IFBB and NPC, who are, you know, undoubtedly the biggest in the world, are taking these sorts of steps, show that, you know, they do see value in, you know, the natural route and natural competitions, which for people like us, you know, running and working in natural federations in Australia is a big plus, because we want, you know, natural competing to be at the top of the list. So it's nice that they're moving down this path. I think it's going to be an interesting sort of initiation process. I'm just talking specifically here in Australia when it does come out, and if it does come out, what that's going to look like. Obviously, that's something that Tony will have to manage. I think for the most part, it's a big positive step. I think there's still going to be a lot of athletes who are like, well, that's not really natty, so I'm not going to compete there. I'm going to stick with the NBAs, the ICNs, because they're true natural federations. And this is going to be for people who potentially have, you know, used in the past and no longer want to use, but still want to compete. Maybe they want to prioritize health. Maybe they want to hold a smaller look as they, you know, mature and get older. I think there's going to be a lot of those type of athletes competing in this federation.
I think the positive aspect is it may stop people from going the enhanced route if they are looking to go into the IFBB and compete in the IFBB. They can now be like, well, I actually don't need to go enhanced to now compete in that federation, potentially get a pro card in that federation, which I think is a big bonus. Like if we can, not that there's anything wrong with it, but if we can maybe stop people or delay people from wanting to go down that path and maybe still pursue their goals and achieve what they want to achieve in that kind of federation without having to do that, I think it can only be a positive thing for sure. So that's what I kind of see too. And, you know, someone said to me, you know, are you worried being like an owner of a natural federation? Are you worried that they're going to like steal from your pie? And I think in the way of not scarcity, in the way of we can actually elevate each other and help each other out. It's almost like us running this podcast and we're educating other people to be amazing coaches. You know, that's going to affect our business. It's not. It's same as with the federations, is we want all of us to grow together so that we can make the sport and the industry absolutely amazing. So I think that this is only going to feed each other. And, you know, if I just put my NBA owner's hat on for 1 second, is I think that the way our divisions and our criteria, we're probably more closely aligned to IFBB than all the other natty feds. Our bikini look is closer to an IFBB bikini look. Obviously our men's physique, we only do the same turns and no muscularity, just like IFBB do. So our wellness is a leaner, more muscular wellness, which is exactly what IFBB is. So I think that when IFBB have their natural competitors, they're going to look very, very similar to an NBA competitor. So it will get to a position where, as we know, with the natty feds and with natty competitors, they always do multiple federations within their season, and it's going to closely align with NBA. So for me, I don't see that there's going to be any issue that, you know, maybe people are going to jump across and not come back or whatever, because people are always going to cross compete. That's just the name of the industry, especially in Australia. And because NBA is the closest aligned in the look that we go for, it's only going to elevate both of us. We're going to get NBA people doing their shows. That's going to help them too. So if we can align ourselves and our shows with them at the similar times, we're only going to help each other out. So I actually think it's a positive for all the federations. I hope that they grow. I'm going to be one of the ones that are definitely going to be supporting them too. So I reckon it's super exciting. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I agree, man. I think maybe the only thing to that is I totally agree that like an NBA and an IFBB natural, you know, have similar looks, and I think it will elevate like an NBA. I think there is a risk factor for someone like an ICN, you know, who does have a little bit of a different look and hasn't quite got that uniformity nationwide where, you know, there's consistency across, you know, judging and that type of stuff, that potentially if the look is really, really different from what an IFBB and natty is looking for, that people may not cross-compete. You know, they may just say, let's just do an NBA and an IFBB.
Yeah, you're right. And this is the thing, we see it pretty common that people will go through the natty fed route and then they'll just swap to IFBB and they will never come back. They'll never come back and compete in the natty feds, right? But I think this is now put people in a position where they can do an NBA because the look is very similar, and they can also do IFBB and do both at the same time and not have to say, okay, I've got to make a switch and I can't come back. And because it is natural, they can stay natural and they can still be within our guidelines and be within their guidelines and compete in both and get the best of both worlds, which is awesome. I can see how maybe not all the natty feds align perfectly. So there might be a position where people do pick and choose. But I think that kind of happens anyways, because even though the natty feds are similar, they have enough difference that people do pick and choose what they prefer. And even though they do multiple feds within their season, they always have their primary preference, if that kind of makes sense. So maybe there might be a position where if people are deciding to do two federations, maybe one of them might start to miss out.
Yeah.
That could be the only change.
And what'll be interesting, like, you know, from a federation standpoint, and this is probably something that you guys will have to work out and decide, is like, if I win a natty IFBB pro card, can I come and do an NBA pro show?
Well, yeah, because actually I've got to talk to Stu about that one. But
it's interesting because technically I only have to have been off for 3 years. How does a natty fed feel about that?
Yeah, so we obviously recognize all natty fed pro cards to allow to do our pro show and compete in our federation. Yeah. Obviously, you need to pass all the tests. It's an interesting one. It's not
something that you guys need to make a decision on, but it's definitely a conversation that's going to come up at some point in time. So
I think the other way though, because I know IFBB is like this, FMG is like this. If you become their pro, you can no longer do any other federation. So there may become a point where
I think IFBB would be that. You're spot on.
Yeah. But you know, that's not an easy thing to achieve. So on your way there, you might be doing both feds, and then you might get to a position where you do get the pro card in IFBB, and you go, okay, well, now I'm here. I'm done. But if you're good enough to get a pro card in IFBB, you're probably good enough to have gotten a pro card in NBA, because we see that NBA pros normally are very, very competitive in IFBB, and that's the untested IFBB. So when we talk about tested IFBB, I would say they would align a lot closer. So next year's going to be exciting. I thought this year was going to be exciting. I think next year's going to be even more exciting. Obviously, we have to juggle the calendar and making sure that no shows clash and all those kind of things too. So it's good that all the feds have a pretty decent relationship and a talking relationship. So I know I talked to Tony Lanciano, and obviously we're part of NBA, so we're all good. We know what we need to do from that perspective too. But I actually ran into Tony Doherty at the airport a couple of weeks ago in Adelaide in the Virgin Lounge, and I was able to have a really, really good sit-down chat with him. It was the first time I actually got a chance to have a chat uninterrupted. I've spoken to him here and there, but it was really good to sit down, have a chat with him, talk a bit of shop. Obviously, at that point, I had no idea about the IFBB natty fed. Maybe he did. I'm not too sure. But when we got talking and I spoke to him about NBA a little bit, he was asking about like testing and, you know, what kind of clientele or what kind of competitors do the shows. And I was talking about how, you know, we're a little bit different in the sense of IFBB kind of stand by itself at the moment, whereas the natty feds kind of share competitors and share athletes, because we all we're very similar and we kind of work together. And he was very interested in that too, and that dynamic. And then we started talking about point of difference within the federations, and he gave me his opinion on the different feds and what his thoughts of how they run and what their point of difference is. And he mentioned about his point of difference at IFBB, and we had a really, really good chat and conversation. He was super supportive, and he was, I don't know if anyone's ever met Tony, but he's a really, really nice guy, and he was really, really supportive, and it was good to really have a chat with him on that day. So it was good to bounce some things there. And it's interesting now, maybe he did know about the natural IFBB, because some of the questions he asked made me think, okay, well, maybe that's why I was asking those things, but maybe he was just interested. So he's
a smart man. He's a businessman. He's 100%. A smart man. But that's a good story, man. That's a really good story.
Yeah, it was really good. I think he was on a radio the other day, right?
I was yesterday. I think it was last night. I was listening to him. I was laughing my head off. I think he was on the Colin Jackie O show, just talking about how he banned tripods at Dolly's, which is fucking hilarious. And I totally understand why. They just can be a hazard. But he said the right thing. He's like, I'm not going to ban phones. I'm all good for people, recording stuff or recording their big lifts or all that type of stuff. But just I don't want these big, objects blocking people's paths and people tripping over, and they're just not needed. So it makes perfect sense.
Yeah. And I think I saw a video on social media about someone was recording their set and someone walked past the camera and that guy had a full go.
Yeah. And then Joey Swole, I don't know if you know Joey Swole is. So he always calls that shit out and has literally built, a massive part of his following. He already had a following before he started doing that, but has built such a big part of his following on calling out, people behaving poorly in the gyms, just basically saying like, you and your camera don't own the gym. If somebody walks past your camera, without realizing, it's just because they're just working out. It's their space too. You don't own it. So he calls out any of that shit. It's quite funny actually. You should look up some of those videos.
Yeah, I did see that, and yeah, that was awesome. But yeah, tripods in gyms, I totally get it. I'll
forward you videos. The only videos I tend to forward MT these days are Sushi Mango videos for anyone who listens.
Yeah, you do. Okay, so that was great news. IFBB, Natty next year, excited. I think it's going to elevate the sport. It's going to elevate all the feds. I'm really, really excited about it. And if I get any more news, I'll definitely be letting everyone know. But that's super exciting. Next was I went to the ICN show. So kicked off the season on the weekend. ICN Rookie Show in Victoria, and also there was the IFBB New South Wales Sydney show. And both shows absolutely amazing. Obviously, I can't talk too much about IFBB. I wasn't there, but I will be going this weekend to see IFBB VIX and also the Expo, and we'll talk about that in a second. But Rookie Show, it was so good to just be back at a show. Just like walk in, see the competitors, smell the tan, and just be a part of it all. Like I literally had a smile on my face the whole time. Obviously, my day was less stressful because I had no competitors there, but it was just good to be there, to get back into it, to see coaches, to see competitors, to see the tanners, to see Tony and the crew and all the judges and things like that. It was really, really good. It was fun to be at a show. So,
well, I think for you, man, with the change that you've had with NBA, you haven't been to a show as a coach for 6 months, and you've been planning shows nonstop for 6 months. So it would have felt very, very nice to walk in there and just to say hello to everyone. That's one of my favorite things of getting back to comps is, like you said, seeing all the coaches, seeing all the athletes, all the people that, you share emojis and, light conversation with on Instagram that you finally get to catch up with and say hello. So looking forward to this weekend at the Expo, actually. I had no one last week either. A lot of my athletes just preferred if they were going to do, their first ICN show of the season, they would rather have done it at the Expo. So we held out for that. So I'm looking forward to getting back this weekend for both the Saturday and the Sunday.
Yeah, I don't know if you got this, but I definitely got this. Either it was in my check-ins or direct messages. They were like, "Ooh, what look is ICN going for? I saw this person win. I saw this person place. And I said, look, it's a rookie show. There's first timers there. You can't really distinguish that is the look that ICN are going for, and that's what's to expect. It's just they have to judge what's in front of them. So there was when people ask me, what do you think they're going for in fitness this season, or what do you think they're going for in bikini, I couldn't really give them any solid feedback because I was like, in my eyes, there wasn't anyone that kind of completely matched the pinnacle of the criteria in the division. And as to be expected, it's a rookie show. It's very hard to get a first-timer rookie to be at that level. But I think hopefully at the Expo, we start to see, or as the shows evolve and as the season evolves, we should be able to see the change in the quality and those different competitors start to come in and start to compete. So it was an amazing show. There was amazing athletes, but it was really hard to answer that question when people ask, what do you think they're going for this season? I was like, look, we just have to wait and see. We have to wait and see. I'm not too sure yet. But all the overall winners were absolutely amazing. I was actually really impressed by the bikini overall winner. I think when she came out, I was like, out of all the athletes I've seen so far, she's got to be the clear winner. And she did win the overall. She was an under 23. She had really, really good shape, really, really good shape. So I'm not too sure if she's going to still compete for the rest of the season, but I I was pretty impressed by her. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to seeing everyone this weekend. I think it's an interesting structure this weekend. As a coach of female competitors who, typically will do bikini and sports, we've got sports on Saturday and then bikini on the Sunday. So the double hair, the double tan, which will be fun.
Yeah. So do you want to talk about how you're going to manage it with one of your athletes?
Yeah. So basically what we're doing, so it's the one good thing is that, and this is the way that I personally like to do this, I always prefer to have the division that you need to, let's just say, be your biggest or most muscular first, right? Because, in terms of a carb up process, you can always go a little bit harder, and then you've got the ability to, potentially, if you do spill or go a little bit hard that night, you can always go and train, and you can kind of rinse it out if need be. It's been a very, very interesting week this week with planning peaks and things like that. I personally always adopt I just peak for Saturday, and then I go on Sunday based on what happens on Saturday and the look and the result that we achieve as well. But also just how the day progresses, how the athlete feels. I typically start, we spoke about peak weeks last week, so I'll talk a little bit about that, but I typically will start my peak weeks for, let's say, a sports model athlete, where I will slowly bring carbs up from Tuesday. So I'll start, let's just say, I'm just going to use round numbers. Let's just say someone's on 125 gram of carb. I might go that on Monday. Tuesday will be something like, a 150. We'll have a look. We'll do photos on that day. We'll do photos every day. We'll start to bring things up a little bit more. We may go a little closer to 200. Again, we'll assess. If we're happy with the way that they're looking, but maybe they're not quite topped up, we might have another day slightly above that. And then once I feel like I've got that desired look for the first day's category, which is obviously sports, then I'm just going to implement a nutrition system or a calorie amount that I think will hold them at maintenance. And I'm trying to completely remove, all expenditure, but the GTS session, which is obviously the full body pump or the upper body pump session, and as little steps as possible, because the more they move, the more we're going to need. That night post-show, again, depending on the results, we'll assess the look. If everything goes perfectly, hopefully they can just go home, shower, relax, do absolutely nothing at all, wake up in the morning, and again, depending on what time they're on stage, they'll have another show day planned for the Sunday, which will all be determined by what that look is when they wake up in the morning. So whenever I have athletes competing 2 days in a row, they'll always have a Saturday plan, and the Sunday plan will be given to them the night after, again, depending on the outcome and the look. But knowing that it's bikini, there's probably not a whole lot we're going to have to do for Sunday, right?
So they are sports Saturday, bikini Sunday. Oh, that's the best way.
That's the best way.
Yeah, because if you spill them the next day, it's perfectly fine because they don't need to be as tight, right? Correct. They need to be nice and full and good shape, but the condition doesn't be as tight as Saturday, which is, okay, that works out perfect. Yeah.
The thing that happens sometimes, and this is probably one of the challenging things as coaches, is let's think about what a worst case scenario would be, and then maybe me and you can mull it over together. He's like, you go hard, you carb up, you're happy with the look, you finish your show, and then they wake up the next day full as a house, right? Really, really hard, really sharp, but it's bikini. What type of strategies can we implement as a coach to maybe soften that look out a little bit? Yeah,
so you're talking about they haven't spilled, they've actually peaked the next day.
They've popped up, they're perfectly topped up now.
Okay, so now they're actually waking up Sunday and they should have been how they were on Saturday. You wanted that look on Saturday because they're nice and full, they're fully topped up, and they're dry, they're looking their best on that day.
Yeah.
Okay. So
it's an interesting one because you got two options, right? You can run with that look, which is, not necessarily a bad thing. You and I always talk about, being the sharpest or the best in a lineup where, I'd rather be the hardest, most muscular bikini girl if that's, rather than, being too soft and spilling, right? I'd rather always pick that side. So you can run with that look, or you can try and soften it out a little bit.
Yeah, I'd almost try not to touch it, to be honest, and hold it and maybe just not pump them up.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to say. Yeah,
that's what I would do because, as we kind of said before, is I'd rather be a slightly bigger and leaner bikini athlete than push it too far, wash them out, and then it's a disaster. So
I'll always do that. I'll always just leave it and pump less or not pump at all.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I would do if I was that. But that's not going to happen for you, bro. You're going to peak them perfectly on both days. What are you talking about?
Man, you know what's funny? The athlete that I'm talking about, when I set this plan, and you'll be proud of me here, man, because I know you're a stickler for this stuff. When I set this plan 35 weeks ago to the goal weight, for what I wanted to be at show, we hit that weight Sunday, knowing peak week was Monday.
That's awesome. I love that, man. That is awesome. That's so good.
It's definitely, when things go that well that you literally get to the exact weight, and we're talking within 100 grams of a weight that you approximated when you estimated the plan, 40 weeks before, it's a good feeling. But then, there's always the unknown of peak week, and what can happen when an athlete gets a little bit nervous. Sometimes I think me and most coaches have seen high stress have an effect on a physique. Also things like, is that athlete going to have their cycle this week? The little things that can pop up and you just have to manage on the fly. But for the most part, when a plan goes that well, it's definitely exciting, man. And, for this athlete as well, being a first-time competitor, there's no real expectation of, everyone wants to do well. There's no doubt about that. But there's no real expectation other than knowing that you're standing on stage and people look at you and go, wow, that athlete looks the part. And I 100% know that that's the case. So whatever happens will happen, man. How do you feel about expo shows? I always find you can get a bit lost in it sometimes because there's a lot going on at an expo, right? You've got 100 stalls. They've got some strongman stuff happening as well. Like it is quite a big event. What is it like, or what's your experience coaching at something like an expo in terms of the difference between, say, an ICN backstage versus an ICN Expo backstage? What are the main differences?
I think that, some of the key things that we want is a nice big backstage area. And sometimes at an expo, we just don't get that. Yeah. Right. So that's one of the things that I found at the expos that I've coached at. It's like just not enough room backstage for them to put their stuff down, for them to pump up, etc. And then sometimes, people can get lost. Like you try to look for people, and also they're about to go on stage, and then you have to run all the way back around to come and see them and watch them on stage. And you've got to fight the crowd all the way through. So sometimes like those kind of logistics are tough, but I think it's awesome being on a big stage. There's always going to be a big crowd. Maybe people that aren't normally interested in bodybuilding might watch the show with things like that. I think from a federation and putting on a show perspective, I think it has to be above and beyond what you run at a normal show. Like it really has to be eye-catching. There has to be great music. There has to be a really, really good MC. I'd even say you can't really go with a basic backdrop too. There has to be some more visuals, whether it's LED screens and things like that, because as we said, at an expo, there's so much going on, right? There's so many ways you can get distracted. If you really want to draw someone's attention, you need to have, an absolutely amazing experience. I'd also say too, is that sometimes because the audience is flat, like, you're all sitting on chairs and it's all flat. The floor is flat. It's not a theater. It can be hard to see the stage. So I'd love to have a screen. Like if you can have a screen,
that'd be great.
That is following the athlete on the big screen. It'd be absolutely amazing. So I don't know what it's going to be like because, man, look, we haven't had an expo in ages since pre-COVID, or I haven't been to one since pre-COVID. So I don't even remember what it was like to run shows there, but I don't even know if they had screens. I can't remember, but that would be something I'd love to have.
Sounds like we're getting a little bit of an insight as to what this Bali show in October for NBA might be like with MT at the Realm. We might be getting all of these things.
You already know. You already know the ideas for the Bali show. There's definitely going to be LED screens. There's definitely going to be massive LED screens at the Bali show. But
man, this is the beauty about, this is off track, but this is the beauty about having, someone like yourself, running a federation who not only competes, but coaches a lot of competitors. And for anyone that doesn't know MT really well, MT goes to all the shows, right? So if there's anyone who knows what's missing, what works well, what should be there, what would be eye-catching, it's you. So, man, I can't wait to see, what you guys are going to do, especially in season B, man. It's going to be super exciting.
Yeah, and like, me well. I don't do any of this for the money, so we're probably going to overspend, but I just don't care.
Don't care. You know what? I had this envisionment of like, you know, on stage silhouettes, greens everywhere, like. But that's
Yeah.
you know, as a competitor, man, you know, you prep for such a long time. You don't get a lot of time on stage relevant to how long you're prepping for and all the work that you put in. So these are the little things that make a difference, man. And it's just nice to know that someone like yourself, someone like Scott, are going to be prioritizing these types of things for the overall experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like, I'll be honest, I drew a little bit of inspiration from ICN Korea when I went to that show, because that had LED screens. It was larger than life, that show.
Yeah, it was awesome, right?
Yeah, it was awesome. And I was like, if we're going to do a show overseas, it needs to be larger than life. And that's why
it would have been expensive, right, to set all that up, yeah?
Oh, yeah. It would have been expensive for them to do that. And I think that's what an expo is, larger than life. So it needs to be like that. That's what I picture it. If I'm going to have, you know, if I'm going to run a show at an expo, or if I'm going to have clients do a show at an expo, it's got to be just not because it's an expo. It's got to be a little bit larger than life. So it'd be interesting to see. Again, financial wise, it's difficult. Those kind of things in Australia are very, very costly. I'm not too sure the agreements they have with the Fed and the Fitness Expo and how much it costs and all that kind of stuff. So I really don't know. But anyway, I'm excited. I don't have anyone in the expo, but I'm going to try to be there both days. Definitely on the Sunday. The Saturday, I want to head off to IFBB. So we'll see how we go. But yeah, I'm excited. So you've got someone, doing both days, but then have you got a male on Saturday?
I got a physique and fitness competitor as well.
Oh, awesome. Okay,
cool. I'll be there. So come say hi.
Yeah, definitely. Of course I will. Of course.
Right.
All right. Let's move into some questions. So some people want to know what our current day of eating looks like. What's your current day look like?
I'll tell you my split. So I'm eating 2850 at the moment on just under 3,000. My day is literally identical every single day. So I do cream of rice with frozen berries protein for breakfast. I do chicken rice veg meal 1, chicken rice veg meal 2, eggs, egg whites, bagels. So that's meal 4 now. And then dinner will be beef mince, rice, avocado, and then I'll always have yogurt and nut butter before bed. Same every day. And my only thing at the moment, I'm consuming the most amount of sugar-free drinks I've ever consumed, and more than when I was in prep.
Why?
Man, I've just developed this crazy desire for like all the flavors that come in a see, that's why hence why I'm on the zero caffeine as well now. So like I go to the supermarket and I love having my fridge stocked up with like Solo no sugar lemon mango, Sunkist no sugar, Pepsi Max vanilla no sugar, Coke Zero no sugar no caffeine. So I've got like just a whole thing all stacked up. So I'll have like I'm having like 3 cans a day.
Oh, I thought you were going to say worse than that. Like 2 to 3 cans is probably the max that people would have in prep if they're like super.
I'm having 3 a day, man, and then some days that are monstering. Oh
wow! Okay,
a lot. I know.
Yeah,
it's a lot, and it's actually been on my mind as something that I want to get back to just having the one, because I also put it equal in my coffee.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have like any sugar-free like fancy sauces or any, I don't need any artificial sweeteners and anything like that. But I will say this, since moving to 3 cans a day, I definitely have felt my digestion's not been as great.
Yeah, well, no surprise. It's not, those things are going to affect it in some way, of course, more so than others for some people. But yeah, that's really, really interesting. Yeah. Because it's not that you're hungry, right?
I just love the fucking flavor. Do you know what it is, man? There's something about getting home, cooking a meal, opening the fridge, seeing all those beautiful flavors, and cracking a cold can and drinking it with your meal.
Actually, so with me, because I have a Coke Zero with my dinner, I got to have it in ice in a glass. I can't drink out of a can. It's like I need to water it down and make it really cold. Are you like that?
Yeah, I love it cold. I don't need to have ice, but I love it cold, man.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because we don't drink that zero sugar soft drinks are so enticing.
Yeah. My day of eating is 3 eggs in the morning, 3 full eggs, an egg white on 2 slices of toast. And I actually use the Natvia jam. I don't know why. I don't want to waste my calories on proper jam. So I use like the low calorie jam. I don't know why. Just because I want a little bit of sweetness. And then I'll have a coffee with oat milk. And then my snacks, and I just sprinkle them, are literally like a Chobani Fit yogurt, like just the vanilla flavor with, I'll sometimes rotate my cereals, like what I like to have, whether it's like a granola or something like that. I normally just change it every week whenever I run out of a box of cereal. I just mix it in that. And then my lunches and dinner are the same. It's kangaroo sausages, mixed veg, and rice. And I sprinkle some teriyaki. There's a gluten-free sauce that you can get. That's it. That's what I have. And then if I'm in a little bit of a rush and I don't get one of those yogurt and cereal meals in, then I'll have a protein shake and 2 Pop-Tarts to get my carbs.
You fucking love Pop-Tarts. What flavor?
Just chocolate, but I'm being adventurous. I bought a box of each flavor because I've never had any other flavor.
You've never had cookies and cream?
Never.
Right.
Never.
Yeah, it's like super, super sweet.
Is it?
But
Okay.
because it's got the cookie crumb in it, it's got a little bit of extra like texture and crunch. It's quite nice.
But you know what? I eat them.
I've had one for so long, man. Cool.
I eat them cold. I don't put them in the toaster.
No, you know what I used to do? Say 320 grams of YoPro, one Pop-Tart crushed into it, mix it through. So it's like a cookies and cream yogurt, protein yogurt.
Ooh.
Yeah, someone's gonna have it. Tag me in it.
Yeah. This is not good to listen if you're in comp prep at the moment, because those things is like the 2 biscuits are like 75 grams of carbs.
I know, but it's like if I was in comp prep and I really wanted a meal, I don't think like a Pop-Tart would be the thing that I'd be like craving. Chance. It would be like an awesome plate of pasta, or like a massive bowl of cream of rice rather than just a really small one.
Honestly, they are the first thing that I remove from my diet when I start prep. It's the first thing I remove.
Yeah, it's a waste.
It's a waste. It is a waste. Absolute waste.
Yeah.
Just remove it straight away. Okay. Who or what got you into this industry, and when did you realize you could make a career out of it?
Who or what? I started training pretty much at the age of like 16, but it was a start-stop type thing. And I trained with a best mate I went to high school with, who you know very well, Mr. Paul Gangemi, who we've spoken about on this podcast before. We used to train in his garage in Avondale Heights with just 1 bench and 1 bar. And he was super, super, super strong back then as teenagers, and his genetic makeup was really, really good. He put muscle on really easy. I just always wanted to be like him, man. And then over time, I got smarter and smarter about what it takes to actually grow and improve. And then I started to learn, and probably you, man, was what really made me believe that I could switch careers. As everyone knows me, I was listening to this for a while. I was in corporate. I was a bank manager. I ran a car dealership at one point in time. I was always weight training and bodybuilding, but it was probably MT that really made me believe that I could change and switch. We went through a similar sort of history, and at the time that we were the closest was around the time that I started to believe that this was something that I could do. So you were definitely a big part in getting me to where I am today. And I know I tell you that all the time off the. I think I've sent you a million messages over the last 10 years telling you how much I love you and how much I appreciate you. But a lot of people probably don't know that MT is a big part in why I now am in the position that I'm in, and I will be forever grateful.
Thanks, bro. I think for me, I was always training when I was young. I was inspired by my dad because he was like always a big muscly guy. And there was like,
tell everyone what your dad did like work-wise, just because that gives it a bit of context. Like,
so he's a fireman. He's been a fireman for, it'd be coming on to nearly 50 years. Yeah. It's a long time he's been in the service. So, but my dad is he's almost like a tradie. Like he just knows everything. He could build a house from scratch. He's crazy. So he was always super strong. He's actually still super strong. He's in his 70s. He's crazy. But that's what kind of got me. I was like, I wanted to be like my dad, like big and strong like dad, right? And then my brother was the same. He's 2 years older than me. And we used to train in like the basement. Like I got a photo of me like with little dumbbells when I was like 4 years old and stuff. And then, you know, growing up watching the movies, Arnie, Stallone, all that kind of stuff, wanting to be big and strong. But then moving into like bodybuilding itself is obviously I was always training. People would, you know, comment saying, oh, you know, you look pretty strong, whatever. But it's not until when I went to uni and I was doing my engineering degree that I had a part-time job at a gym equipment sales company where they would just sell home gym equipment. And one of the guys that I worked with alongside, he was a bodybuilder and he used to compete. And then we used to go to like the IFBB shows together and that kind of stuff. And then he would say, you know, you should try to do it. And I was like, oh, I don't know. And then actually I told Tony Doherty this story when I saw him, but he's one of the people that I went to his gym to buy the tickets for the show. Because you have to buy the tickets physically. You have to go to the gym and buy the tickets to the show. And he said to me, he's like, do you bodybuild? And I was like, nah. He's like, nah, you've got pretty good shape. You should probably think about it. And then I think he tipped me over the edge, to be honest.
That's so cool.
Coming from someone like that to tip me over the edge. And then that's when it kind of snowballed. And then I got into competing. And then, you know, again, like there's no coaches. People start asking you for advice. Oh my God, you competed, you did well. Like, how do you do this? How do you do that? And then you start helping people, give people advice, and then it snowballed till then. Just that obviously I still need to earn money and have a job. So I continued on with my career while I still had my passion. And then eventually, as you know, and as you did, you turn your passion into your career. And then that's the way it is.
Definitely, man.
Yeah. So anyone can do it. Anyone can do it. Yeah. Sometimes it takes risk, but it can be definitely.
No, I've got someone working for me now who's trying to do the exact same thing and will absolutely succeed. Everyone knows, like Matt's just come on board and he's slowly increasing his base as well. And yeah, it can be done. There's definitely, you know, the fear that goes with it. And I think ultimately, we've spoken about this before too, the more you have from a commitment responsibility standpoint, specifically talking financially, the harder it is. Because like MT said, you can't just walk away from a home loan because I'll tell the bank, hey guys, I'm going to switch careers. If you could put my home loan payments on pause while I get myself sorted, it doesn't work that way. So, you know, sometimes you got to hustle and grind and do double or safeguard yourself by putting a little bit extra away and giving yourself a bit of a buffer. But if you really do want to do something, you'll find a way. It may not be instantaneous, but there's certainly avenues to succeed if you want it bad enough. And if your passion's there for the most part, you're probably going to succeed and do really, really well.
100%. You know, I did have a home loan when I made that career change, and it was definitely an educated risk. And I just bought the current home I'm in. So I sold the previous one, bought into this one, and that's when I started my career. But again, I built up a buffer. I was like, I'm going to build up a buffer of funds, and I'm going to give myself 6 months. And when I leave my career, I'm going to give myself 6 months I'm going to use that buffer, but I'm going to give myself 6 months to build my business up so I can at least support myself and cover the minimum bills. And that's what I had to do. But man, people have so many more opportunities and so much more resource to help them now be a coach. Like, we didn't have podcasts back then. There was no such thing as an online coach back then. There's now a whole industry where you can hire business coaches if you want, and there's so much stuff that you can learn and listen to so many podcasts to become a really, really good coach and do well in this industry. So, man, we did it tough. You guys should be able to do it easily. And I actually said this to someone in my team today during their check-in, because they did an Instagram story during the week saying that they're, you know, finishing off their cert and they want to, you know, get into coaching. And in their check-in at the end, I said, look, I know you wanting to build into be a coach. I'm here if you need me. Like, I'm here to support you. I'm here if you need me. I want to help people become coaches. And
100%. Absolutely. So
there's so much resource out there to become a coach. So if you're thinking about it, just do it. Just do it.
Yeah, I agree, man.
All right. I know you probably have to go, right? So you got a client.
I do. How long we got? 1 minute. Yeah, that's probably.
All right. Let's finish on this one. What do you guys think about so many people starting podcasts?
Man, I got no problems with it. I think it's a positive. I think ultimately, you know, if people are branching out and trying to expand and grow and develop. If the only thing that comes of someone starting a podcast, let's just say they don't get any listeners other than their closest friends and family, but it helps them grow, develop, and become, more confident in themselves and in their role and in their passion, it's fucking worth it just for that alone.
Yeah, I agree.
It's not time poorly invested, and I don't think it matters how successful, how many followers, how many listeners. I know that's the big objective, but I think it's just about personal development. And if you get that out of it, do it.
Yeah.
I would never, think negatively of someone who starts something that, doesn't take off at a certain rate or doesn't. Who cares? I think it's all positive.
Yeah. I know we've had people come to us saying, oh, these people are starting a podcast that looks exactly like yours. I'm like, that's great. Like, whatever. If they're drawing inspiration, podcast is only here to help everyone and help themselves. So I'm all for it. I'm all to support anyone that wants to start a podcast and have a podcast if you're helping educate others. But also,
we go on other people's podcasts just to help them and support them.
Exactly.
All the time.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm all for it. All right. That was good. I think we covered some good stuff there, good topics. I know you got to go. Hopefully next week, Scotty is back. I know he's super busy with his research and work and stuff, but hopefully he's back and we'll absolutely smash it out. But until then, congratulations for everyone that competed on the weekend. All the best for everyone's competing this weekend. If you see us at the expos, at the shows, please tap us on the shoulder and come say hello to us. We'd love to meet all you guys.
Definitely.
All
Take
right.
care, everybody. Can't wait
Take
to
care.
meet someone in person. All the best. Thanks, MT.
See you, mate.